Good evening, and welcome to the Durham District School Board meeting of Monday, September 16th, 2024. I'd like to call this meeting to order and begin with the land acknowledgement. The Durham District School Board acknowledges that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships, both historic and modern, with the territories upon which our school board and schools are located. Today, this area is home to many Indigenous peoples from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge that the Durham region forms a part of the traditional and treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, the Mississauga peoples, and the treaty territory of the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nation. It is on these ancestral and treaty lands that we teach, learn, and live. I'd like to call on Trustee Edwards to introduce our guest this evening.
Thank you. And tonight we're actually pleased to showcase Cataract Way Public School Junior Choir, composed of students from grades 4 to 6 under the co-directions of teachers Alicia Grove-Rowe and Christos Caldas. The choir has shared a recording of their version of O Canada. We happened to meet Miss Grove-Rowe actually today when we visit the school, and they have a huge choir. They had to split it up so that they have the junior and the senior. So please rise for O Canada if you can. That was really great, and I recognize some of those faces, so it'll be really nice when I go back the next visit to say, I saw you at the board meeting. They'll be really pleased. Okay, so on behalf of the entire Board of Trustees, again, we want to thank the students and staff at Cataract Public School for their work in preparing for the recording performance tonight, and I can honestly say they really did prepare for that. It was great. We hope to have another performance in the near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards. Item 4 on your agenda. Are there any declarations of interest? Seeing none, there are no declarations of interest at this time. Can I have a mover and a seconder to adopt the agenda? Trustee Morton, Trustee Linton, all in favor? Motion carries. Item 6, consent items. Is there any objection to the matters listed in Section 6 of the agenda being approved or adopted as noted on the agenda? And I'm seeing none. Those items are approved and adopted as noted on the agenda. Moving on to item 7. So we're now on item 7, which is public question period. Each question being asked this evening will be displayed on screen along with its response from staff. Questioners are reminded to ask only their approved question. We have allocated up to 30 minutes for public question period, and a timer will be visible for all participants. All approved questions, along with their corresponding answers from staff, will be posted on the Durham District School Board website following this meeting. All questions submitted for public question period will be shared with trustees following the meeting. I would like to invite Dylan Reynolds to ask a question virtually, which will then be responded to by Associate Director Jim Markowski. It'll just be a moment.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello, Dylan. You go ahead with your question when you're ready.
I'm ready. My question tonight is about the increasing enrollment at Dunbar High School in Pickering. Back in June of this year, there was a report that came out showing the increasing enrollment throughout the school board, but at Dunbar High School, it states in the report that by October of 2028, it is projected to be around 2,141 students, which is double from the 1,500 students at the same time last year in 2023. So is there a possibility there will be a boundary review at Dunbar High School in a couple of years from now? And are you considering moving some students to Pine Ridge Secondary School, which is also in Pickering?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the question, Dylan. Nice to see you. Hope you had a nice summer. Dunbarton High School has a ministry-rated capacity of 1,801 students, and for several years has had below 100% utilization. So the school has not been full for a number of years. With a current enrollment of 1,705 students, that's as of September of this year, the school is expected to approach 100% utilization toward the end of the school year. While the projected growth out to 2028 indicates an additional 300 plus students, this will initially be accommodated through efficient programming of existing space and then the addition of portables if required. There is currently no plan for a boundary review with Pine Ridge Secondary School. Although Pine Ridge is not operating at 100% capacity, continued growth in the north of Pickering will bring students to both schools until such time that a new secondary school can be funded in the Seton area of Pickering. There are 2 secondary school sites reserved for DDSB in the Seton development plans.
Yeah, I also want to say thank you. Yeah, and also want to say thank you, everybody, because this is my first board meeting where my first questions I've asked because I left the school board earlier this year. And it's been very interesting. I hope to see you guys again on October 21st, 2024.
Thanks, Dylan.
Bye!
Bye, Dylan. Thank you, A.D. Wright. I'll now ask Superintendent Michael Bowman to read and respond to the next and last question.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. This year, we've established a district-wide code of conduct due to changes in PPM 128, which outlines behavioral expectations for anyone who enters our schools. This has been highlighted in our communications, in our system messages to parents, and through signage posted in each of our schools in very visible ways. Items such as the use of personal mobile devices, as well as progressive discipline and the connections to positive school climates and safety are thread throughout the documents and in this signage, providing expectations for a safe and welcoming environment in all our learning spaces. Through an ongoing focus on creating a positive school climate, staff in our schools work to provide a consistent presence in our hallways and spaces to provide supervision for students throughout the school day, as well as to implement strategies such as a sign-in, sign-out logs for washroom visits. Through developing connections and relationships with students, we are working to ensure that if students encounter any challenges in their schools, including within washrooms, etc., that they are comfortable in seeking assistance from a staff member to help as needed. Data provided to schools through the School Climate Survey is often used as a starting point to drive discussion about spaces in schools that may require more attention and supervision, and through ongoing commitments to gathering student voice, school teams are actively working to ensure they understand how students experience different spaces in our schools on a day-to-day basis.
So the question was, how is the Durham District School Board ensuring students feel safe using their school washrooms? Thank you, Superintendent Bowman. Moving on to item 8 on your agenda, and I will call on Director of Education Camille Williams-Taylor to present the ministry memorandums and information update.
Thank you, through you, Chair. So I'm happy this evening to provide an information update for trustees and the community. Good evening and welcome to the first board meeting of the 2024-25 school year. We've been off to a successful start so far, and as students enter their third week of classes, we're grateful for the efforts of school-based and centrally assigned clerical and custodial maintenance staff who have worked hard over the summer months to ensure that our schools are open and ready each day. I'd also like to recognize the August return for students and staff in the modified calendar schools who have been settled into the rhythm of the new school year since last month. DDSB is pleased to have opened doors to 2 new schools this September, Beaver River Public School in Beaverton and Mamawe Ewok Public School in Oshawa. Both schools include on-site child care centers. A significant renovation at Mary Street Public School in Oshawa has also been completed. More information on how DDSB is planning for continued enrollment growth and future school needs is included in the agenda this evening in the quarterly construction and major projects update and the annual pupil accommodation plan reports. With students back in classrooms, schools are planning a number of ways to engage families this fall and throughout the entire year. Information about curriculum nights, Meet the Educator, and family events, and school community council meetings will be shared locally through school websites, newsletters, and emails in the coming weeks and months. At a system level, the Parent Involvement Committee, also known as the PIC, is seeking volunteers to represent the interests of students and families across Durham District School Board. Please visit the DDSB website and watch for social media to find out more about how to become involved and stay informed this year. And speaking of special school events, I'd like to draw attention to Trustee Michelle Arsenault's recent coordination of personal care item donations for students at Durham Alternative Secondary School through IDLF. We saw in pictures and in words how grateful students were to be invited to choose items that were most useful for them, including an expression of one student who said they feel seen. Thank you very much, Trustee Arsenault. On behalf of the entire senior team, I'm pleased to welcome the entire DDSB community to what is sure to be a great year, this 2024-25 school year. Thank you, Chair, and that's my update for this evening.
Thank you, Director. Looking ahead to good news from the system, and we'll go back to Director Camille Williams-Taylor.
Thank you, Chair. And as always, we'll turn it to our formidable media team to press go.
Good evening, everyone. On behalf of DDSB students and staff, we are happy to bring you good news from across the system.
The Great Beginnings Summer Program supports over 500 incoming kindergarten students and their families across the DDSB, offering a play-based appropriate curriculum to enhance various skills. With the help of over 70 DDSB educators and 2 child care partners, the program focused on fostering belonging and well-being to ensure children enter kindergarten healthy and confident. The initiative provided a smooth transition into kindergarten, preparing students for a successful start in September.
The Durham District School Board is thrilled to welcome students back for the first day of the 2024-2025 school year. Behind the scenes, dedicated staff have worked tirelessly to prepare schools, ensuring safe, welcoming, and vibrant spaces for learning and growth. We look forward to an exciting year ahead and are ready to support every student's success.
Our Facility Service Department staff were busy over the summer getting schools and buildings ready for a return to school. Renovations took place at Mary Street Community School, Seneca Trail, and Vaughan Willard Public Schools, while new schools Beaver River and Mamaway, Iyawang, were completed and opened for schools in September. Thank you to our facility staff for their hard work.
This summer, the Ignite Durham Learning Foundation ran a school supply drive to prepare students in need with supplies for the new school year. In partnership with local businesses across the district, 834 DDSB students now have access to supplies for the new school year. A sincere thank you to all donors, supporters, and volunteers who were able to raise over $61,000 in value for students in need.
Congratulations goes out to Ormiston Public School student Layla on her hard work and dedication in her chosen sport of Taekwondo. Layla won the Ontario Taekwondo Provincial Championship, took home gold in the Cadet 37 kilogram division at the 2024 Canadian National Taekwondo Championship, and achieved a silver medal for Canada at the Pan American Cadet Junior Championship. Way to go, Layla.
At the end of August, school and office administrators gathered at Uxbridge Secondary School for the annual Activation Day. Highlights of the day included an inspiring keynote discussion with Newman Ashraf, first ever presentation of the Maxwell B. Nelson Leadership Award to Principal Tina Thomas, official launch of the DDSB multi-year strategic plan, and engaging breakout sessions where staff could get to know their teams.
As you can see, the dates of significance take us to the next board meeting in September.
Thank you to Kira and Corey from GL Roberts CVI for reading this month's good news.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, we have one recommended action this evening. It is the short-term borrowing resolution, which can be found in your package on pages 15 to 18. Trustees, the recommended action can be found on page 16 at the bottom of your page. I'd like to call on Associate Director David Wright for the presentation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This short-term borrowing resolution report comes to trustees annually and confirms the authority of the board to borrow up to the amount specified. In the report this year, we have indicated a request to borrow up to $275 million. The wording in the resolution is the standard wording required by our lending institution and has been recently updated. And so for confirmation for trustees, there was a late update distributed from the version originally included in your package. The board leverages short-term borrowing capacity for two main reasons: for the purchase of property for future school construction as a method of financing a gap in education development charges, and as short-term bridge financing for capital project payments in between progress payments from the ministry. In addition, having access to borrowing for operational needs for unforeseen issues, if required, is a prudent endeavor. I know that this report generated great discussion last year. I'm sure trustees do have questions, and I would be happy to answer them through you, Madam Chair. Thanks.
Vice Chair Oldfield.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I have a couple of questions for Associate Director Wright this evening. The first question would be, under financial implications, there's a formula there. And so my question would be, will the formula that the province uses cover the full cost of the interest that we'll be incurring? And then I might as well give you all the questions. And are there any other costs that would not be reimbursed that the board would have to pay and not be reimbursed for?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Oldfield. Couple of parts to this. So we borrow potentially for different reasons. If we're borrowing to purchase property, so we are running through EDCs and we incur borrowing interest, we can charge that interest back to the EDC account. So ostensibly over time, we will recover that through education development charges. Interest on short-term financing for capital construction costs are reimbursed by the ministry. If we borrowed for operations, we would not be reimbursed for interest charges. We don't generally borrow for operating purposes. Before the ministry instituted their cash management strategy, we self-financed most of our endeavors because we did have cash on hand historically. Now we don't have cash on hand because of the ministry's mandate essentially to withhold cash until school boards had exhausted their own. That's their cash management strategy. In a typical use of our short-term borrowing facility, typical in relation to DDSB, there would be no out-of-pocket costs for leveraging the short-term borrowing. If we were to borrow for operating costs, we would be paying the interest on our own.
Before we move to further discussion and questions, I'm looking for someone to put the motion forward. The recommended action is on page 16. Trustee Morton?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I'm looking at that recommended action, and I move that the Board of Trustees approve the borrowing resolution for the 24-25 school year as noted in Appendix A.
May I have a seconder, please? Trustee Cunningham? We'll now go to discussion. We've timed out. Trustee Cunningham? After the discussion and debate, we'll deal with this first, and then I'll come to your motion. Oh, we've got it, and you seconded it. Trustee Morton put that forward, and you seconded it. Thank you. So any further questions? I believe we've timed out.
I do have a suggestion. It's clear that the EDCs, the education development charges, are insufficient for allowing us to expand along with the growth in the system, the growth in the region. And I wonder if perhaps we could consider asking our MPPs for help with this. We know that they're hearing from the community about the need for new schools. And I wonder if we could ask for their help in allowing the increase in EDCs. So I would put forward a motion on top of this motion that we write a letter to our MPPs talking about the fact that growth should pay for growth and that it's not fair for the existing tax base to completely fund the new developments, and asking for their help to increase the cap on the EDCs so that we can be in a more fiscally stable position without having to increase the borrowing cap further.
Thank you, Trustee Cunningham, for that. I'd like to continue with the main motion, which has been moved and seconded and is on the floor for discussion right now, and I will come back to you for your motion once we have dealt with this. Are there any further questions? I believe we're going to Vice Chair Oldfield.
Thank you. And just so I'm clear on my first question, this is supplementary. So if I understood you correct, any short-term borrowing for operations costs, the interest on that would not be covered, or the costs and the interest? I just want to make sure I'm clear.
That would be a supplemental.
Thank you for the question. So if we had to leverage short-term borrowing to short-term finance an operational need and we incurred interest, we wouldn't receive reimbursement of the interest from the Ministry of Education.
Can can I ask a supplemental question to my supplemental question? Where does that money come from then? If we have to pay that interest, what line does that come out of?
I don't know that I can tie it to a specific funding line or budget line. It would be charged likely to the operational area for which the charge was incurred, if that makes sense. It really isn't something that we normally undertake as a district or haven't historically undertaken as a district. I'll give you an example. The ministry requires reports on specific dates. There is a penalty the ministry can leverage if boards are late in submitting reports, and the penalty would be up to 50% of the monthly cash flow. So if the school board was late submitting reports and was penalized and needed to borrow to bridge a payroll payment, for example, and we incurred interest charges, we wouldn't be reimbursed the interest from the ministry for that. It would be an operational expense.
Trustee Morton.
Thank you, and through you, Chair, I just want to make sure that Trustee Cunningham's second motion is a second motion. It is not attached to the initial motion. We're all on the same page with that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trustee Miller.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. My question is regarding the borrowing. So, understanding the position we're in, I would just like to understand the position that we're in. So, if we do a short-term, another temporary borrowing from the bank, basically we're going to still be in debt. That's what I understand. So, I wanted to know what is the worst-case scenario we could be in from the banks, if that makes sense.
Thank you for the question. I'm not 100% sure that I'm understanding, but I'll try and respond. If I answer your question, great. If not, please follow up. So we have an offset in timing in between the need for capital and a revenue stream to pay back that capital. That's the ongoing regulated rate cap difference in education development charges. So what the ministry's capped our revenue rate at versus what it's costing us to purchase property. So there's a timing delay. If we buy a piece of property, it takes a period of time to get the revenue back through education development charges to pay for that property. So the gap in the rate that we're able to charge versus the cost of property is so significant right now. It's going to take many, many years, if ever, we're able to recover that. So it's not a sustainable proposition. I think that we've got good standing with the bank. We've got, we're a public sector organization that is almost 100% funded by the provincial government, and this Board of Trustees is prudent in their spending in terms of passing balanced budgets, and so we will likely remain in good financial standings, and there will be no issue with the bank. So I don't know that there is a worst case scenario, only to say that we can't continue to borrow to finance this EDC deficit forever, because our growth projections, based on the growth projections in the Durham region, are that we will continue to see growth for the next 15 years. Property is not getting any less expensive, and so something needs to be rectified to ensure that, the board isn't stuck carrying hundreds of millions of dollars indefinitely. Thanks.
Back to you, Vice Chair Oldfield.
Thanks. I really just want to make sure it's clear, because I find it, if I'm not clear on it, I'm sure there are others that are not either. So I wanted to make sure I understood you, Associate Director Wright, that because the EDCs don't cover our costs, and we have to do short-term borrowing, and we find ourselves in a situation where we're putting out money before we get money back, that if we had an operational issue, we don't have that same flexibility now, because the money that we had, that we could have used prior, it no longer exists now. We don't have that flexibility to use that money while we wait for the ministry to get the money back. And that could generate potentially penalties to us if we found ourselves in a position where we weren't able to report if we had these types of operational challenges. Is that correct?
Yes, but we are looking for an increase to our ability to borrow so that it's not a problem in the near-term future. So we don't foresee any significant operating issues that would cost us to borrow anything, really, but by borrowing up to $275 million based on our cash flow forecast, our need to purchase property over the midterm, we should be okay. So yes, it absolutely does reduce our capacity to borrow or ability to borrow if something catastrophic were to happen. Obviously, we don't foresee that happening.
Trustee Edwards.
Yes, thank you. And I appreciate that we need to move and increase our short-term borrowing limit. But I do understand that there is, correct me if I'm wrong, there is a limit to our actual short-term borrowing based on our operating and our budget. And so at what point in time, because the cost of land continues to increase, at what point in time are we going to be able to not purchase? And I know that we're trying to replenish, but as you said, it takes a long time. At what point in time have we reached that time where we will not be able, necessarily be able to purchase the next piece of land that comes up that we need for the projected growth because we've reached our short-term borrowing limit?
So we're here today looking for an increase to the short-term borrowing limit because without the increase, we would be in a position where we couldn't afford to purchase land for future school construction. The amount that we can borrow is capped based on the bank's language at the amount of revenue outstanding at the time the resolution is made. So this resolution comes forward in September because that is the point in time where, based on our budget, there is the largest revenue stream left to come in. So I think by the language the bank put forward, we could borrow no more than 1 year's revenue. Realistically speaking, we couldn't service a debt that size.
Vice Chair Oldfield, back to you.
Thank you. At 4.1, under cash management strategy, the report says that on September 1, 2018, the EDU implemented a delayed grant payment strategy aimed at reducing borrowing costs at the provincial level. So I guess my question, again, is, because I'm not clear, is there a difference between, and you may not have the answer to this, and I appreciate that, but is there a difference between the cost of the province borrowing money and the cost to us borrowing money? Because it seems to me at the end of the day, if there isn't, it's a little bit of a shell game that puts pressure on us short term for their provincial gain. But maybe there is a difference. Maybe the province doesn't enjoy the same interest rates that we do. I don't know.
I don't know that I have a suitable answer to your question, Trustee Oldfield. So I would say the government would likely get better rates than we would because they are a much larger organization, would have more power to command a better rate. I know the intention was to take cash out of school boards because school boards had a lot of cash. So I think the pressure from the cash management strategy was to reduce the amount anybody was borrowing to operate. I know that the effect on our board is that the ministry now has quite a bit of our money in terms of delayed grad payments, again, because we're in a fairly healthy position and we do have a working funds reserve. We're in a good financial position, historically have had a cash reserve to help self-finance some items. Now we don't hold the cash. Now it's an accounting concept. The ministry holds that cash on our behalf. So I don't know what the provincial perspective looks like, but I know that it really has met its intended purpose for our board, because the ministry has taken away our ability to hold cash, to invest cash, to have a return for the board.
I don't see any further questions or comments. We have a motion on the floor that is moved and seconded. And the motion reads that the Board of Trustees approve the borrowing resolution for the 2024-25 school year as noted in Appendix A. I would ask trustees to use their check mark, green check mark, red X, and all of those in favor, would you indicate that with your green check mark? That motion carries. Thank you. Now back to you, Trustee Cunningham, for an additional motion.
Thank you. I'm actually going to pass the floor to Trustee Pinello, who has something written out and ready to go.
And perhaps we can get that up on the screen for trustees. Trustee Pinello, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you, I would like to move that the Board of Trustees, with the support of the Director, write to and connect with MPPs across the region of Durham over the coming 2 months to discuss the pressures, challenges, limitations, and impacts the Durham District School Board, or DDSB, and all the families and communities within it will and are facing because of the arbitrary monetary cap that the province has placed on education development charges, EDCs, since 2019.
Looking for a seconder for that motion. Trustee Cunningham, thank you. Is there any discussion? Trustee Morton?
Thank you. And through you, I am fully in favor of this motion. And I think we just need to reiterate the growth that we are experiencing in Durham as opposed to many areas in the province of Ontario. If we are growing at a rate of 7%, that needs to be acknowledged. The public needs to be informed. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Trustee Pinello.
Thank you, Chair. Through you. Just to add a quick moment of gratitude for Associate Director Wright, who led us through some of the answers to our questions. I think I am not alone in being frustrated and quite disturbed each time we are brought to have a conversation around our requirement to essentially borrow to ensure that communities in a very fast-growing region have access to education within their communities. And particularly knowing what is happening in Oshawa with our immense growth and the pressures, I certainly don't want that emulated across the region for other municipalities. And so very pleased to put forward this motion, but very disturbed that I have to in the first place. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Pinello. I think we all feel the same as you do. Well put. I'm not seeing any additional questions or comments. We have a motion that is moved and seconded. It's up on the screen. The motion reads, I move that Board of Trustees, with the support of the Director, write to and connect with MPPs across the region of Durham over the coming 2 months to discuss the pressures, challenges, limitations, and impacts the DDSB and all the families and communities within it will and are facing because of the arbitrary monetary cap that the province has placed on education development charges, EDCs, since 2019. Trustees, all those in favor, would you please raise your green check mark? That motion carries. Moving on to item 11, under information items, and we'll call on Associate Director David Wright to provide the quarterly construction report.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and through you, very pleased to be joined this evening by Lisa Bianca, Head of Facility Services, who is going to run us through the presentation. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Madam Chair, through you. I am here tonight to share with you the quarterly construction report. Am I echoing? How's that? Better. The quarterly construction and major projects report. Generally, I come here about 4 times a year to present this, and this time I thought I'd bring some pictures to share with you this evening. But before that, just a quick recap. So the Ministry of Education regularly provides us with an opportunity to apply for capital funding for our projects. We've been very fortunate, and we have received funding for 8 new school builds and 1 major addition. So first up, on September 3rd, we were very, very pleased to welcome students to the new Beaver River Public School. It is a beautiful new facility on the grounds of the old Beaverton Public School site. Bright new building for our students, and by all intents, everybody is really enjoying the new building. One of the benefits of building on an established site is mature landscaping, and this is a picture of the back play area. There's lots of shade. We've added a little bit more, some additional planting, but it really is a lovely place for play, outdoor learning, and many other activities. Inside the building, we have bright new classrooms, lots of light, big windows. We were able to welcome students into these spaces for lots of collaborative learning, and I think the school shows very, very well. Also on September 3rd, I'll try that again, okay. Also on September 3rd, we opened Mamawe Iawak Public School in North Oshawa. This is a new build for us. This is the first time we have built this school. It was designed for us by a firm that builds for a number of other boards, so you may see it in other districts. This is the first time that we have built this school. Lots of light, very welcoming. Let me move closer. Okay. Is that better? Okay. Give that a try. The picture I'm showing you now is the light-filled gymnasium. The windows along the front of the building are into the gym. So the gym is very community-facing. It's not at the back of the build like it is in many schools. And the idea is to form a connection with the community and really interact. I think you can imagine, some community use going on in there in the evening, the lights on, and you can see it as you're walking down the street. Again, very big light-filled windows, classrooms in this new building. We also opened the addition to Mary Street Public School. We actually, in order to leave children on site during construction, we have built in a different area of the site and sort of flipped the site plan around. So this summer, we took down the old building, and in September, students went into the new classrooms. And they're a pretty big difference from the building that was there before. Here's a shot of the entrance to the building. It's bright, it's open, it's welcoming. There's a bench for sitting and gathering. I think it's sort of a very, very welcoming feature in this school. Moving on to some builds that aren't quite as far along. This is the unnamed Coghlan Public School in Ajax. Foundations are well underway. It's a little bit of a different foundation system because of the geotechnical characteristics of the site. It's a pile system, but it is moving along quite well. Again, unnamed Pickering Seton. the north end of Seton, just south of Taunton Road, is well under construction. There's a lot of earth moving going on, and foundations are well away. This was taken a couple of weeks ago, but we are very pleased with the progress. And then the long-awaited unnamed North Oshawa Secondary School, lots of foundation work going on, lots of equipment excavation. Secondary school builds do take about twice as long as an elementary school build, because they are about the size of 3 elementary schools. So it's like building 3 elementary schools simultaneously. And then just drawings for this, but we're hoping to get some pictures of this building. This is a artist rendering of the unnamed West Whitby Public School. It's a new building to us, but it has been built by the Halton Board. It is a design that we selected from the ministry's education, or the ministry's design guidelines. So we're hoping to get out to Halton District to take some pictures of the actual building. But for now, I'm able to share the artist rendering. Characteristic of this building: large, light-filled spaces, open spaces, collaborative spaces. The other West Whitby build that's under design, I just have the architect's rendering for this one. It is a version of Mamawe'iawak, so it'll be an updated version of that build. It'll be the second time we've built that school. And lastly, the unnamed Oshawa Public School, Symington and Steeplechase. It is the same as the first West Whitby school that I shared, so we'll have 2 of that model building at the same time. And there's a few artist renderings of the outside of the build. So childcare projects. We've been working on childcare projects since 2017, and we're finally wrapping up the program. This is the Scott Central Public School. There's a 1-room addition in your foreground, and right behind it is actually the original gym for the school, which was converted to 2 other childcare rooms and ancillary space. Many years ago, they had a larger gym built on the school, so they had 2 gyms. So this was a conversion of the old small gym. And there's a picture of the interior, one of the childcare rooms the staff were settling in. On to Seneca Trail. This one is a little bit further behind. We expect to see this project wrap up at the end of the year, and it is a 3-room childcare addition being added. Lastly, Vaughan Willard. It was an interior renovation. We took 2 classrooms to expand the childcare from 1 to 3 rooms, and we were fortunate to receive funding to build on 2 additional classrooms to replace the 2 that we took over for renovation. So moving on to major projects, usually you just get this list in the report, so I wanted to put some pictures to the list so you could get a sense of what this work entails. We receive 2 grants every year to do this work, and last year we received $18 million in school condition improvement, $11.6 in school renewal, and that's what is used to fund these projects. The first one I want to share with you is a renovation of the courtyard at Eastdale Collegiate. It was a pretty original part of the building, and we saw it as an opportunity to create not just an accessible space, but a space for outdoor learning, a space for our inclusive student services classes to have outdoor area that they could access for learning and recreation. And we see lots of opportunities in this space now, from casual use to teaching to maybe an art show. Lots of opportunity, I think, that we can create with these indoor-outdoor spaces that we really learned to start utilizing when we were, in the pandemic. We started thinking about learning taking place inside and outside. Some of the things that we do end up being, they use a fair bit of funding, and they're not usually seen, because when students and teachers leave at the end of June, the building looks one way. You come back in September, it looks the same, but we have been busy over the summer. So I wanted to share this one with you to let you, give you an idea of some of the scale and magnitude of some of the projects that do happen over the summer months. Similarly, ventilation upgrades. There's two shots. You've got O'Neill on the left and Anderson on the right. These projects really do open up an entire school, and we have 10 short weeks to open it up, do the work, get it put back together and ready for the students. So I wanted to give you an idea of some of the magnitude of the work that's undertaken during that short time frame. We've undertaken a number of washroom upgrades. This one is at Port Perry High School. We worked with the school. They were having a lot of concern with vandalism in the washrooms, and they were very amenable to looking at a different form for their washrooms. So we have installed single stall washrooms in a bank in that area. It was very welcomed by the school, and we're getting some great feedback from the school on this. We're always looking for new opportunities to improve space for inclusive student services classes. We are building some purpose-built rooms over at Dunbarton High School. This one will extend into the fall a little bit, but it'll give you a sense of some of the work that's going on. Boiler replacements, we do a lot of those. Again, summertime is the time to do those. This one I wanted to include because we've had a number of questions and there's been a lot in the media about RAC. So RAC is reinforced autoclaved aerated concrete. It's something that's been in the news, particularly related to the Ontario Science Centre, and we have had lots of questions about that. We do report to the ministry regularly on what we have in our buildings, how we're managing it. We are very fortunate that we do not have a lot of this product in our buildings, despite the fact that it was popular in the 1960s. So all of our buildings have been inspected. We have engineered reports on them every year. Some instances, in this case it was Pickering High School, it was deemed the best thing to do was to pull it out and replace it. So if you, the light's a little high so you can't see it, but you can actually look down through the roof into the library below. So it's a little hair-raising to do it in the summer, especially when as rainy as this, but in rare instances we do have to take it out like that. Another job that we did 2 years ago is Port Perry. We removed quite a bit of roof there to replace it. The balance of our schools with that product are well managed and inspected regularly. So we don't have any dire need to do much in the way of replacement, but we do monitor continually. Standard roof replacement, this is Meadowcrest. So I'll give you an idea of the work that goes on there. So just wrapping up, total commitment from the province for our new builds, including the addition at Mary Street, is just shy of $262 million. So that's the total amount that we have received in allocations for these projects since 2018. This year, we expect to be expending about $58.3 million, and you'll see that figure in the budget book. So we don't spend it sort of all at once, but that is what we expect to have to commit towards construction this year. The capital projects, the sort of major projects that I've shown you and that are listed in the report will be just over $30 million to execute those. And there's lots of information on this in the budget book, and we've given you the references in your report. So what does this do? Well, it gives us 5,413 new pupil places, 190 replacement places at Mary Street, and 500 new childcare spaces. And the impact of these you'll see in the accommodation plan. You'll see where our capacities increase and portable utilization goes up or down. So it is tied back into the accommodation plan. But more importantly, what it does is it supports meaningful learning. We're replacing dated buildings with high quality teaching and learning spaces, connected communities. We talked about the gym and whatnot, spaces to foster connection, to meet, to learn, and well-being by creating safe, caring, respectful environments. So as always, quarterly construction is posted on the website. There's the current as well as historic reports for your viewing. And I'm happy to take any questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Thanks.
Do appreciate having those pictures. It's the first time we've actually seen those things in photographs in a board meeting, and I think it's certainly very impactful. So I'm looking, lots of comments. I think that's Trustee Cunningham.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Echoing Chair Thatcher, the photos were fantastic.
Thank you.
It really got me excited about these new schools. They are absolutely beautiful. I'm really excited for the students who get to learn there, and thank you for all your work on them. They look incredible.
Great, thank you.
Thank you,
Trustee
and through
Morton,
you, Chair.
sorry.
I've had the honor, the privilege of visiting our 2 new elementary schools, and I am so impressed. In Beaverton, I couldn't imagine that this is the same property that the Beaverton Public School occupied. And I'm sure that our superintendent, Elmhurst, will agree with me that your foresight a few years ago in acquiring additional property was extremely insightful. The yard was beautiful. The whole building was beautiful. And visiting the North Oshawa School, when you see a gym with all this lighting and the washrooms, I was impressed with both buildings. So thank you for the work that you do.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Trustee Linton.
Yes, thank you, and through you, Chair. Just 2 questions. For Mama Way Yawak, you spoke about the gym being moved to the front and it's typically in the back. How did you come to that decision point? Like, it's a great idea and I really like the connection to the community. So just if you can speak about how that decision's made, that'd be great.
Thank you for your question. Initially, when we started engaging the architect to work on that, to that school, they were a new architect to us, so they brought with them some designs that they had used that they wanted us to take a look at, rather than, prior to that, we had been repeating a lot of our school designs. And they said, how about, taking a look at this? And we looked at their design, their suggestion, and we started thinking about community connection and how that school would integrate with the community. And we really felt that it was a great move for that neighborhood. So that was really a position. I have to give them credit. They did suggest it, but we really felt that it was, it delivered our purpose and our idea of engagement well.
Amazing, thank you so much. I think it speaks to the innovation and like as we work together and just really connecting schools to the community, it works, right? As per Trustee Morton's observation. So my second question is, you spoke about the unnamed Pickering Seaton and said that it was going well. Are you able to speak to the anticipated opening date?
Yes, so thank you. We had the ministry funding had an open date of September 2026. We have been able to move that up, to accelerate that, and based on our progress tendering and awarding the contract, we expect to be open on September 2025. So we will be opening a year ahead of our sort of ultimate, target date. So we're very pleased with the product, with the progress that we've been able to make for that community. Great.
Trustee Panillo.
Thank you, Chair, through you. Thank you so much. First, I echo all of the comments about the visuals. I think it's so important. Often we sit here looking at numbers and lists and timelines and answering emails, but to actually get to see a compilation of the work thus far, brings a different type of appreciation. I was interested in your slide about the rack replacements, and I wondered what those roofs are replaced with, if you don't mind.
So they tend to be larger span roofs usually, so we'll replace them with metal deck with a concrete topping and then a conventional roof. We now have products that, that bridge that very well. I think in the 60s at the time, it was sort of an early way of getting larger open spans, and we now have building materials that can do that for us that are far more conventional and not subject to the impact of moisture and other things that cause them to deteriorate. So it's just a standard metal deck, concrete topping, and a conventional roof on top. Okay.
Not seeing any further comments or questions. Thank you very much for your presentation, Lisa. Much appreciated.
Thank you all.
Moving on to information item 11B, and we'll call on Associate Director David Wright for the accommodation plan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am going to invite Lisa to deliver this report as well, but before I pass the microphone over, I just want to acknowledge that this is a beefy report. It is information and data rich, and though Lisa's done her best to make it digestible and put descriptions in, we know that this isn't the most accessible report because it is so data heavy. And so an invitation to you and an invitation to our family of school superintendents to connect with facility services or planning staff to go through the report as it's relevant to your interests, likely your municipalities, certainly the district as a whole, to get a sense of where we foresee pressure coming and how we might have to address or meet accommodation needs over the coming years. And with that, I will turn it over to Lisa. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Associate Director Wright, and through you, Madam Chair. So I'm here this evening now to share the pupil accommodation plan trends, issues, future opportunities for 24 to 28. This is an annual report that we update and it's a culmination of the information that we have gathered over the past 12 months. Just giving a bit of background, which I don't think we have done in previous years. So this report started in 1998. Back when the Ministry of Education directed school boards to create a plan such as this to provide structure for immediate and future accommodation needs compared to their capital funding. So at that time, you received a funding amount, and it was up to the board to determine how to do it. Very different from the system that we have now. So this report was requested by the ministry so that school boards could show how, basically the factual basis for why they were building what they were building. We had a lot of flexibility back then. It changed in the early 2000s with revisions to the funding model. We've had a few revisions since then. It was no longer required, but DDSB has continued to produce this every year, along with many other boards, particularly growth boards. It's a very valuable document for us, and it's just good business practice. So that is why we do it. What does the plan do for us? It provides us with the data for decision making. It is the foundation for how we select capital priorities, business cases to go forward to the ministry, where we need to do boundary reviews to try and balance enrollments if a capital priority case is not supportable, how we deal with declining enrollment and still provide students with the same educational opportunities and the breadth of programming that is easier to offer in more fully enrolled schools. Through growth analysis across the district, we identify changes in demographics. We've been seeing sort of a lot of that. We look for enrollment trends and how these impact school utilization, and ultimately how it all will affect our students, staff, and families. So as last year, this is the first year we did it, we divided the plan into two parts. So the first part is sort of overall development trends and issues, but then we've maintained the municipal sections so that you can find community-specific information and relate that as well to the overall plan. It's meant to be read together, sort of the big picture, and then how that sort of extends into your individual municipalities. It shows us what's happened over the last 5 years and what we can expect over the next 5. Durham is growing. There is absolutely no doubt about that. Lots of new young families, not just in new growth, but in established, mature neighborhoods. We're also seeing a fair bit of infill development, so increases in density within existing neighborhoods and the pressure that it does put on our existing community schools. Currently, across the north, we've got north of the urban area, we are utilizing partner schools. We don't have any schools yet in many of these more northern areas, so I'm talking sort of Kedron area, Brooklyn, Seton, well, not Brooklyn, New Brooklyn, the Brooklyn development area. Seton, we have, sort of 10 partner schools in Whitby. We've got 8 in North Oshawa. We've got 6 in Pickering for Seton. So this, we see the growth, we see what's coming, and we will continue to submit capital requests to gain schools in these new areas. So with that, I am happy to take any questions that you may have. I do realize it's a pretty robust document, and I want to reiterate Associate Director Wright's offer. My team are happy to sit down and talk through the document and about your municipalities in detail.
Trustee Cunningham.
Thank you, and through you, Chair. I wanted to ask about the implications of the FCI index being over 65%. As mentioned in the report, this is the level where it's recommended to replace a school rather than continue to repair it. I do see in the report that, of course, you're keeping the schools safe for students, but obviously that's not sustainable if that's no longer the recommendation. So I just wanted to ask, what happens next?
Great, thanks for your question. So FCI is one of the leading factors that we use when we're determining our capital plan for major projects. So it's one of the first places we go when we take that $30 million and say, what projects do we need to do? What's our highest and most urgent? And that is certainly a place we go. The FCIs that are reported in the document are sort of a snapshot at time, and it doesn't always capture the work that we've done. So that's, and actually I had my team print out sort of a little snapshot to take a look at it. For instance, at Brock High School, yes, we have a high FCI, but in the meantime, we have already scheduled the roof replacement for this coming year, and we have been replacing exterior walls and that type of thing. It's just not captured yet in the ministry's data. So the sort of short answer is we take it very seriously, and you will see those FCIs change as the work that we do changes the calculation for them.
Trustee Morton.
Thank you, and through you. I have a question regarding French immersion schools. It's really disappointing that 4 years ago, we started to see a decrease in the number of students, families interested in the French immersion program. But I'm looking at Uxbridge Public School. At present, they have a 59% utilization rate. 4 years from now, it's predicted that they decrease and go to a 52% utilization rate. To me, that's alarming. But I'm also looking at a couple of years ago, we made the decision to remove kindergarten classes from French immersion schools. And that was because some schools, and we know there were a number of schools who had over-enrollment. I'm thinking that, or I'm asking if we could have a reconsideration of those schools that have been impacted in a negative way, like Uxbridge Public School, so that we could reinstate kindergarten there and attempt to grow the FI program. Is that a possibility?
Thank you, and through you, Chair, and Trustee Morton, thank you for bringing that question forward. You are correct. Back in April of 2021, I believe we brought a consolidation report of the FSL review that took place here at the DDSB, and one of the motions that got passed was that we would be removing kindergarten classrooms from dedicated French immersion schools as a means to accommodate the increasing trend. You also touched on over the past 4 years, in particular during the pandemic, I think there has been a shift in terms of enrollment trends. I think the suggestion right now is that it's really too early to tell. We're still in the very initial stages of the implementation of removing kindergarten classrooms from dedicated French immersion schools. Our suggestion would be to monitor those trends, and I would argue that outside of Uxbridge Public School, there likely is other schools across the district that are being impacted, and how it is that some of the French immersion enrollments do trend over the upcoming years can help kind of inform us bringing our report back to discuss what we should or shouldn't do at that time. Really, to be honest with you, I just think not enough time has passed for us to really have a trend at this time.
Trustee Edwards.
Thank you, and I have kind of two questions. One is, particularly in Ajax, we have some schools that are low enrollment, basically low utilization rate, and yet we have some other areas that are high. And understanding that the ministry does not prefers us to fill up those schools before we try to build other schools. And I know there's recommendations here about future boundary reviews, possible future boundary reviews, but I'm just, and I see the difference between the two today and then the 5-year projection. We don't want to hit that 5-year projection with those as when we have existing. When do we actually look at actually looking at those boundary reviews? Because if we leave it too late, like I'm thinking, that's only 5 years away. And the way we do our boundary consultations, get true consultation and so forth, we might not, basically, we're gonna run into the 5 years in no time. So I'm just wondering, when do you actually choose? And then the second question I have, and I know the answer, but you know, when we talk about, again, the ministry has not basically still put a moratorium on accommodation reviews, basically, and have they even spoken about that? Because that also would make a big difference and on the options that we have to deal with enrollment.
Great, thank you for your question. You are entirely correct. You know, you raised the issue that Ajax is such a quandary because we have very, very full schools, and then we have schools with fairly low utilization. Opportunities for those schools, I think we will see as well as development along the northern edge of Ajax and the southern end, as partner schools, as holding schools, utilizing those buildings for that. It's a way to fill them up in order to accommodate students until we can build a school in their community. I think that is one opportunity. As you mentioned, certainly accommodation review is not available to us right now, but maybe something that we need to look at down the road. A wholesale boundary review involving multiple school communities is a really challenging thing to do. we may have to sort of look at that down the road, but we really try and focus any boundary reviews on a more concentrated school community or communities, adjacent communities. So it is something that we will have to look at. I think once we open the new Coghlan School, we'll see sort of what the impact on its neighboring schools are, because A.G. Bell will be impacted, Eagle Ridge will be impacted. Once the boundary review, once a boundary is established for the new school, then I think we can take a look at some of those other schools and see what opportunities we have for them.
Not seeing any further questions or comments from trustees, but I would like to, we have Trustee Morton.
Thank you, and through you again. This is not a question, it is a comment. And I'm looking at our new school in Beaverton. We opened with 4 portables and 127% capacity. And it is forecast that in 4 years' time, we're going to be at 152%. We knew that this was going to happen, and I am pleased that we can accommodate additional portables on that property. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Morton. Appreciate the, and I'd just like to reiterate the comment made by A.D. Wright. Certainly appreciate the opportunity for trustees to review in more detail the accommodation plan, should they choose. So thank you very much for that presentation, Lisa. In the agenda this evening, we do have the report from the Special Education Advisory Committee, and so I'm just going to look to Trustee Miller and Trustee Edwards and Trustee Arsenault to present that report.
Thank you. As Chair Thatcher has said, the report for the Special Education Advisory Committee of June 20th can be found starting on page 188. And I just wanted to highlight that the SEAC is basically is looking at doing a parent presentation. They did meet and do some planning on it. They continued to discuss that at the last meeting on how that will proceed. We were looking at something in October, but that's just not going to happen at this point in time. But please look forward to sort of future flyers as far as what is going to roll there. The other thing I would like to highlight, though, is that we did receive the response from Durham Region Transit around basically support student transportation and supporting people with basically our ISS students. It really became clear in that response, and I didn't see it wasn't attached in here, but I think it was before, but that response, it became very clear that the Durham Region Transit did not understand what SEAC is, that they basically, that the letter came from the Special Education Advisory Committee, who basically consists of parent organizations and what they see within the community. It did not come from basically the perspective of the Board of Trustees. It was very disconcerting on their response because one of the things that they did raise, that the meeting that was the one meeting that we did have, that some of these items around accessibility wasn't addressed, and it was. I was present, and it was. So we really thought that it is an opportunity that we need to build that understanding of what the Special Education Advisory Committee is, particular to Durham Region Transit. So we had several discussions on how we can ensure that they have an understanding that the people around that table represent the community and understand the needs around transportation, not only from a school board point of view, but also from, you know, those agencies and those people that go to other programs within the community, as well as when we talk about cooperative projects and supporting our students in the NISS programming. So it was really disconcerting from that perspective. I don't know if anybody else wants to add any comments. The other thing is that the Inclusive Student Service report that is provided at CIEC is very, very valuable. It has been seen as a really, really good communication tool to parents and understanding of what is happening in our school and what services that Inclusive Student Services do provide.
Thank you, Trustee Edwards. So the communication then to DRT would be in the September 3rd Standing Committee package for anyone who is interested. Would it have been in that? Okay, thank you. So that would be in the September 3rd Standing Committee package as part of behind the agenda. Thank you very much for the CIAC report. At the back of your package, you can find the dates of significance. As there is no further business, I look for a mover and a seconder to adjourn. Trustee Arsenault, Trustee Cunningham. All in favor? Good evening, everyone.